You'll also learn the masail of how to make dua, the etiquettes. So there is a targheeb and tarheeb component, the rewards and the warnings. The rewards of making dua, the warnings of not making dua, and also the etiquettes and adab. But it's important to remember, this is the same thing with respect to all other sifat and actions. Talking about ikhlas is not actually having sincerity. Talking about ibadah, talking about sadaqah doesn't mean a person gave sadaqah. So we need to speak about these things, we need to remind one another, and then we actually have to make amal on the above. Just speaking about it will not absolve us of the responsibility of following through. In any case, so let us move forward, inshaAllah. There's many things to cover here. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So the agenda is, first we're going to cover some general fadail, virtues of dua. What did Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam tell us about dua? And this presentation is visible on the women's side, I believe, and also I hope so, and also online for those who had to leave. So something visual for us to follow along. We are also going to cover two general types of dua. There are many different divisions of dua. This is one very basic division. What are the Masnoon du'as that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has taught us versus making individual dua to Allah Ta'ala for our needs, and some examples of both. The Masnoon du'as for various occasions throughout our day and night. And what are some guidelines for our dua to ensure that it would be, inshaAllah, accepted by Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala, and that we are protected from our dua being rejected, or we are mahroom and deprived of the mercy of Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala. May Allah protect you and I and all of us. Ameen. So what are some general fadail, general virtues of dua? What did Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam tell us about it? What are ayats in the Quran about dua? So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam gave us fadail as virtues because we have within us as human beings two motivating factors towards any action. One is jalbul manfa'a, we want something that is beneficial, and one is daf'ul madarra, we want to avoid that which is harmful. This is part of our nature. A little baby is crawling and learning about his environment, he puts something in his mouth, it's beautiful, it tastes good, he learns that, oh, this is nice. Something else, it hurts, he knows I need to avoid this. And because of this human nature that we have, Allah our Creator has put in us, that is why He sent Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam with two knowledges, ilmu targheeb and ilmu tarheeb, the knowledge of encouragement and virtues, and the knowledge of warnings, wa'ad and wa'id. Inna arsalnaka shahidan wa mubashiran wa nadhira, bringer of glad tidings and warnings. So these will motivate us. And once we are motivated, then we have to learn how to. Why should I do an action? We learn that, and then after that we learn how to do the action. So we see number one, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, "Ad-du'a silahul mu'min." Dua is a weapon of the believer. What a very comprehensive word, weapon. So Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala has given us this amazing weapon, and it is our mahrumiyat and ourselves being deprived if we are not utilizing this weapon Allah has given us. وَعِمَادُ الدِّينِ, it is a pillar of the deen. If the pillar falls, the entire structure will collapse. So the entire structure of the deen is resting on this pillar. Imadu deen. وَنُورُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, it is the light of the heavens and the earth. It will enlighten our hearts, enlighten our minds, enlighten our life by making dua. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands, وَقَالَ رَبُّكُمْ, your Lord says, أُدْعُونِي, it's an amr, it's a command, it's an imperative verb, لِلْوُجُوب, it makes it compulsory upon us to make dua. The ruling about dua is that it's wajib upon all of us to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah ta'ala says, Udu'uni, make dua to me, call on me, astajib lakum, I will respond to your dua. This is the promise, wa'ad of Rahmani of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam further said, Man futiha lahu minkum babu dua. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens for somebody the door of dua, meaning he's enjoying dua, he's making dua, his heart is inclined towards his dua, the tears are flowing from his eyes, he's really feeling it, then subhanallah, the doors, futihat lahu abwab ar-rahmah, the doors of mercy have opened up for him. One hint, one subhanallah tip for all of us is that our spiritual state is not going to always be the same. It fluctuates. This is a fact of life. Sometimes we are in a more spiritual mood and we are overcome by emotions, and other times our hearts may be harder and our eyes may be dry. So if we are very lucky that we are making dua and we are in the zone, or we are feeling it and our heart is into it, then we should realize that فُتِحَ لَهُ مِنْكُمْ بَابَ الدُّعَى. Allah has opened the door of dua for us right now. What do we do? Everything else, put it on pause. Don't worry about delaying anything else. This is a window of opportunity that has been granted to you. It may not be given again. It's a very rare opportunity. So just pause everything and forget about everything else in the world for a few moments and present to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all your needs and continue to make dua. You know yourself how hard your heart is and how hard my heart is, I know. And for whatever reason, Allah has made our heart soft. It may have been a particular calamity, it may have been some trauma, it may have been the occasion, it may be Laylatul Qadr, it may not be Laylatul Qadr. And you could be by the Kaaba, you could be making itikaf by Riyadul Jannah. Whatever the situation, wherever the place and whatever the time. If for some reason we feel that our heart is in the dua, then we should realize that this is, subhanAllah, a door that is open from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let us take as much as we can at this moment. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned it is the most noble act. Nothing is more noble in the sight of Allah than dua. It is the best act of worship. In fact, it is the essence of all worship. Dua mukhul ibadah. It is the essence of all forms of worship. It is the afdalul ibadah. To seek our needs from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is the only thing which can repel and change the qadr. There's mubram and muhaqqaq and there's mu'allaq. Certain types of taqdeer is 100% confirmed, cannot change. And other types of taqdeer, la yarudul qada illa dua. Nothing can change the qada and decree of Allah except for dua. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, He is close. As we covered this ayah previously in one of the nights. وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي, when my slaves ask you regarding me, فَإِنِّي قَرِيب. Tell, we would, everywhere else Allah ta'ala says, tell them, respond to them. يسألونك عن الشهر الحرام قتال فيه قل يسألونك عن الخمر والميسر قل يسألونك عن المحيض قل يسألونك عن فلان وفلان يسألونك عن الأهلة قل. They ask you about this one, they ask you about that one, respond to them, tell them this, tell them the answer, tell them قل قل قل. This is the only place in the entire Quran where the qul is not there. Allah Ta'ala took the qul out. وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي, when my slaves ask you about me, فَإِنِّي قَرِيب, I am near to them. Meaning Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is so quick in responding that He doesn't spend any time even saying qul. And He also is teaching us that there is no intermediary. Even Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is not there when we are making dua. We can directly make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, فَإِنِّي قَرِيب, I'm surely near to you. أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ, I'm ready to respond to the caller when he calls me. فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي وَلْيُؤْمِنُوا بِي لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْشُدُونَ. So let them believe in me, let them call out to me so they may be rightly guided. This repels the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like, it repels the anger of Allah. In fact, if you don't make dua, Allah gets upset. As the poet says that Allahu yaghdabu in tarakta su'alahu wa bunayya adama in saltahu fayaghdabu. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gets upset if you don't ask from Him. And bunayya Adam, not Ibn Adam means son of Adam, and bunayya Adam means very small son of Adam, who's not a big person. He's not a well-known individual or has high social standing or financial strength. But he's small, young, small, or even sometimes it could be considered a person of low stature. If insultahu, if you ask from him, well, maybe once he'll give you a second time, he'll then eventually get mad. If you ask human beings, they get upset. And if you stop asking Allah, He gets upset. And it is a sign of humility in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He asks us to make dua, then He says, "Ud'uni astajib lakum." Make dua to me, I will respond to your call. Innal ladhina yastakbiruna an ibadati. And those who are too proud to worship me, sayadkhuluna jahannama dakhirin. They will enter Jahannam utterly abased, meaning humiliated. So the scholars of tafsir, I'm not going too many points of tafsir tonight because we have a lot to cover. As you can see, I'm going very fast. Hopefully not too fast. But over here, there's something called iltifat. Because iltifat means Allah Ta'ala changes the word. Sometimes He changes the tense, sometimes He changes the person from first to second, sometimes from past to future, sometimes He changes the word itself. Over here, He changed the word. That's worth noting. And there's a lesson here, that's why I'm sharing this balagha point. What happens here, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala first, He asked us to make dua. He said, Ud'uni, make dua to me, astajib lakum, I'll respond to your dua. Then He could have said, Innal ladhina yastakbiruna an du'ai, those who are too arrogant to make dua to me, they will enter Jahannam. This would have been the logical sequence. Make dua, and I'll respond to your dua. And in yastakbiruna an du'ai, if you make takabbur and you're arrogant to make dua. So there's consistency. But what happened is He changed it up. Allah Ta'ala said, Ud'uni, make dua to me, I will respond to your call. Innal ladhina yastakbiruna, those who are arrogant to worship me. So He moved from dua to worship. You see that? What does that indicate? You were talking about dua. But now you switch the word to ibadah. That shows us that the essence of all ibadah is dua. The essence of all ibadah is dua. Is that hard to understand, or I need to explain it further? Allah Ta'ala says, make dua to me. And then He says, if you are too arrogant to worship me. He switched it. Instead of saying, if you're too arrogant to make dua to me, He switched it and He said, if you're too arrogant to worship me. So that shows that the essence of worshipping is dua. And then this is munajat ma Allah, this is a dialogue with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're making dua to Allah, we are speaking to Allah, and He's responding to us. So if we love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in which we should, we love the dunya, we know لِحُبِّ الْخَيْرِ لَشَدِيدٌ, but وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَشَدُّ حُبًّا لِلَّهِ. The love of dunya is shadid, the love of Allah is ashad. It is even stronger, the strongest love. And since we love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we should love speaking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should enjoy speaking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you're not enjoying speaking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if it's a burden, then there's a problem, there's a deficiency in that love, and we need to fix that problem. We need to develop the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allahumma ja'al hubbaka ahabba al-ashya'i ladayya. Oh Allah, make your love the most supreme love of my heart. So sometimes we are hasty and we say, why aren't my du'as being accepted? There's a beautiful hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that identifies 3 different ways Allah Ta'ala accepts the dua. Whoever makes the dua, مَا مِن مُسْلِمٍ يَدْعُو بِدَعْوَةٍ, whoever makes the dua that is not a dua of a sin, لَيْسَ فِيهَا إِثْمٍ إِلَّا أَعْطَاهُ اللَّهُ بِهَا إِحْدَى ثَلَاثٍ. Allah will respond to him in one of 3 ways. One of 3 ways. إِمَّا يُعَجِّلْ لَهُ دَعْوَتَهُ. Number 1, get exactly what you asked for. Right? Number 2, Allah Ta'ala makes saves it for you fil akhirah. إِدَّخَرَ يَدَّخِرُ لَهَا. He saves it for him in the akhirah. That you will receive the reward of the dua in the form of good deeds on the Day of Judgment. A person on the Day of Judgment will see so many amazing good deeds in the book of deeds. Allah Ta'ala will take it out for him and tell him, اقرأ كتابك, read your book. كَفَى بِنَفْسِكَ الْيَوْمَ عَلَيْكَ حَسِيبًا. You are sufficient to judge where you belong. So when he will look at his book, he will say, wow, this is an amazing book. It has so many good deeds. But unfortunately, it's not mine, because I didn't do all of these. I wish it was mine, but it's not mine. So many good deeds for whoever this belongs to. Some mistake happened. And he can't be really happy with his mistake because he knows that it's going to be discovered, because Allah Ta'ala knows everything. So when he's in that condition, he'll be told that these good deeds that you see in your book of deeds are in compensation for those du'as that you made in the world that were not answered. And at that point, from the bottom of his heart, he will desire what? That not a single du'a would have been answered in the world, because it's so much worth it over here. Because مَا عِنْدَكُمْ يَنْفَدُ, whatever I ask for in the dunya, it is fani, temporary. وَمَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ بَاقٍ, whatever reward I'm getting in the akhirah for the unanswered du'as is eternal. And why is it بَلْ تُؤْثِرُونَ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا, you're preferring the worldly life? وَالْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ وَأَبْقَى, and the akhirah is far better and eternal. And it's mathematically something that's eternal and infinite is far greater than that which is finite. So this is something which now, since we are hasty, خُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ وَعَجُولًا, we want everything right away, we want instant gratification, may seem like not a good deal, but it's actually the better deal. It's actually the better deal. We don't ask from Allah Ta'ala, okay, give us deal number 2 because it's better. We leave it up to Allah Ta'ala. Continue making dua with the hope that it's not accepted right away is not the right way to go. We leave it up to Allah Ta'ala. However, if Allah Ta'ala chooses option B for us, then we should not be despondent, but rather we should appreciate that and embrace it. That's the benefit of knowing that it's better for us. Is that clear, right? Okay. Then we have protection from a calamity. This is something in between. As Allah Ta'ala says, يَصْرِفَ عَنْهُ مِنَ السُّوءِ مِثْلَهَا. Meaning Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is not necessarily answering the dua right away, nor is He storing it for us in the akhirah, but rather something halfway in between is that He is protecting us from a calamity that was supposed to befall us. So it's not exactly what you wanted now, nor is it thawab in the akhirah. It's something different, which is that a potential potential calamity that was going to fall upon you, that was going to befall you, is now removed. So what is the rest of the hadith up here? It says, قَالُوا إِذَا نُكْثِرْ. Ya Rasulullah, that is so amazing. There's 3 amazing deals. It's a win-win-win situation. All 3 are winning. Who is losing? No one's losing. There's no concept of losing when you make dua. It's a win-win-and-win situation, right? Normally they say it's a win-win situation, both sides win. Over here, all 3 are winning. Who is a loser? There's no loser. Therefore, what should we do? إِذَا نُكْثِرْ, we're going to make a lot of dua. And if we make a lot of dua, is this a limited offer or unlimited? Is there a limit to this? Because it's just too hard to believe. So what if you make a lot? Then Rasulullah ﷺ said, Allahu Aktharu. Don't worry, Allah is even more than that. You can ask and ask and ask as much as you want to ask, and then He will give you more. Like He will in Ahlul Jannah. Ask. They will ask, then He will give multiple times that. So, there are two types of dua. There is a Masnoon dua, as we talked about, and the individual dua. Masnoon duas are duas narrated to us by Rasulullah ﷺ throughout every aspect of his life. From the morning, when you rub your eyes and wake up, and or you don't rub your eyes, you still, either way, whenever you wake up. Then there are Masnoon duas to make from that moment till you close your eyes at night. These du'as, one thing about these Masnoon du'as is that if you just look at them and you read through a book, take a book of Masnoon du'as and read through the contents. If it's the more mufassal one, it will help you more to realize that for every single moment, like literally every single moment, there is a Masnoon du'a from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And what does that indicate? It indicates the connection of the heart of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at every moment. He was never ghafil. He never forgot about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if we learn these du'as and we recite them with understanding of the meaning and contemplation of the meaning, then subhanAllah, whoever does so will become a wali of Allah. I remember when we were in hadith class, in Dawrat al-Hadith, then the students are focused on academic discussions. So there are different chapters in the books of hadith where there are many finer points of wisdom and depth, and you see, mashallah, great academic points, lataif, and subhanallah, things that intrigue and excite the students. They pay attention, they take notes. But then when you come to Kitab al-Ad'iyah, book of du'a, dua for this, dua for that, they're like, okay, what's there to take notes of, what's there to focus on? So our Ustad, he mentioned that at that moment when we were in Kitab al-Ad'iyah, the book of prayers, that you're reading so fast, you're like, okay, just get through this and get to something more exciting, more intellectually stimulating. So he said, you know what, pause for a moment, reflect. You think this is boring, these du'as? That whoever will practice these du'as, then I guarantee he will become a arif billah, he will gain the recognition of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will become among the awliya. Such a simple solution. Just learn the du'as and focus on them. Because when you open your eyes, if you say, Alhamdulillah, all praise and thanks to that Allah, think about it, reflect on it. Alladhi ahyana ba'dama amatana, who has brought us into a state of wakefulness like life, ba'dama amatana, when we are in a state of deep sleep like death. Wa ilayhi nushur, and towards Him we will return. What's happening? This is some amazing high level muraqabah and contemplation and meditation you just did, if you did it properly. Because you are realizing that when I was asleep, I was like, it's similar to I was dead. As the Prophet ﷺ said that, an-nawmu ukhtul maut. Sleep is the sister of death. Because your perceptions are reduced. Like a person who are limited, you cannot hear things when you're sleeping if they are not too loud. You can't hear. If someone is having a conversation and it's not too loud, you will not be able to hear it. A person who's dead cannot hear, you cannot hear. You cannot see when you're sleeping. A person who's dead cannot see. You cannot walk. Well, most people can't walk when they're sleeping. Right? So you cannot speak when you're sleeping. If you do, then it's not intelligent. You don't know what you're saying. You're in your sleep. So it's similar to death. And then what happens? You are coming back into a state of wakefulness. If you have an alarm, when you hear the alarm, you should realize, subhanAllah, وَنُفِخَ فِي الصُّورِ, the trumpet will be blown. That's another alarm. فَإِذَا هُمْ مِنَ الْأَجْدَاثِ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهِمْ يَنْسِلُونَ, they will wake up from their graves and walk towards the mahshar. Just like you're walking to the bathroom or walking to make wudu. And if you are stressed out, who? Come on, turn this alarm off, snooze. قَالُوا يَا وَيْلَنَا مَنْ بَعْثَنَا مِنْ مَرْقَدِنَا. Who woke us up from our sleep, from our marqad, from our place of rest, from our graves? So it's the same scene. One hadith goes so far and gives the imagery that يَنْفُثُ التُّرَابَ عَنْ وَجْهِهِ, he will be wiping out the dust from his eyes and from his face. Right, subhanallah. أَحْيَانَا بَعْدَ مَا أَمَاتَنَا وَإِلَيْهِ النُّشُورِ, and towards him is our return. So you're going through that mental, spiritual, emotional exercise as you're physically getting up to remember that we have to return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If a person starts off his day thinking about the day of judgment, that will be a very different day. Because he knows that he has to present himself in the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and all of his actions that day will be very, very different from the one who doesn't remember the akhirah. And then, you go, when you enter the bathroom, you see the mirror, you say, Allahumma kama hasanta khalqi fahassin khuluqi. Oh Allah, as you have beautified my exterior, beautify my interior. Enter the bathroom, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-khubthi wal khabaith. You seek the protection of the shayateen and jinn. Reminding yourself that the shayateen and jinn, they love filth and urine and excreta and dirt. Whereas the malaika, they love purity and cleanliness. And all these sahirin and all these magicians and black magicians, they're involved in filth. Because that pleases the devil. You remind yourself to protect yourself from filth and tahara, and importance of that. Every single aspect. And we can go on and on and on to starting to eat. One general thing we find is before beginning anything, the dua includes Bismillah in some form. And after completing it, it includes Alhamdulillah in some form. So Bismillah wa barakatillah, and then Alhamdulillah alladhi at'amana wa saqana. All thanks to Allah who's given us food and drink. وَجَعَلَنَا مُسْلِمِينَ, and made us Muslims. Somebody will say, wait a second, you just ate and drank, so you say at'amana wa saqana. Did you just take the shahada? Why are you saying وَجَعَلَنَا مُسْلِمِينَ? It's a reminder that food is a blessing, drink is a blessing, but becoming a Muslim is what? The greatest blessing. Every single dua, we can't go through the hikmah of each one right now, and I ended up pausing here for too long perhaps, but the bottom line is what? There's so much wisdom and lessons for us in each single dua. Before we sleep is Allahumma bismika mutu ahya, or bismika rabbi wada'tu jambi. All the duas include in the name of Allah. And when you wake up, it's alhamdulillah. And then there are individual du'as that we make. These are not, these could be Masnoon du'as, words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, words of the Quran, but they are presenting our own needs. That's the individual du'a component. The Masnoon du'as, there are specific times for them, specific wordings as narrated in the books of Ahadith. And we see the istighfar of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, seeking forgiveness. The one that Allah Ta'ala said he was ma'soom, he had protected him divinely from committing sins, he did not need maghfirah. Then as an additional honor, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, لَيَغْفِرَ لَكَ اللَّهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِن ذَنْبِكَ وَمَا تَأَخَرَ. If you would hypothetically even commit sins, your past sins and your future sins are forgiven. Not only Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, but all of the Anbiya alayhi salam, our aqidah is they're ma'soom an al-saghayr wal-kabair qabla an-nubuwwati wa ba'daha. Divinely protected from committing major and minor sins prior to and post-prophethood. Prior to and post-prophethood. Divinely protected from committing major and minor sins. Whenever they speak, وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ, they do not speak from their desire. مَا كَانَ لِنَبِيٍّ أَن يَغُلَّ, no Nabi will commit any indecent act or cheat, make khiyana. These are the ayat that prove that from the Quran. Unlike the Bible, where they ascribe so many major crimes to the Anbiya. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had protected Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam from committing any sins, yet he would make istighfar 100 times a day minimum. And these Masnoon du'as are a means of protection for us. So, what are some examples of Masnoon du'as? I already give some that are not on the presentation. We talked about which ones. Did we forget already? The dua when you wake up, dua when you look at the mirror. What else? Dua after eating food, dua before. These are some other du'as. Leaving the house, there's dua. Right? It'll give you that protection when you go out. Everyone wants protection, everyone wants insurance, guarantee, for anything. It's not just like protection on, the biggest investment of your life, your house, homeowner's insurance. If you go to the post office one time, I was sending a postcard, a card. So the lady at the post office said, oh, you want insurance on this card? Right? So everything, there's insurance. What about the divine protection from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Then there's before sleeping, or there's a longer dua here, Bismika Rabbi wada'tu jambi. Then there's a Sayyidul Istighfar, which is a beautiful dua, seeking forgiveness from Allah ta'ala, and protection from debts and worries. Right? This is dua for worldly calamities. We want to seek Allah's protection, safety of house and family, as follows. So when you're leaving our house, Bismillah, in the name of Allah, Tawakkaltu ala Allah, I rely only on Allah ta'ala. So we adopt the means, right? But we lay our trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We make our plans, شاورهم في الأمر فإذا عزمت. When you make your plan, you do make your plans. Then فتوكل على الله. Rely on Allah Ta'ala. اعقلها, tie your camel. وتوكل على الله, and rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tying the camel is a command, meaning utilize the means. Right? There's false and pseudo-Sufis who have the wrong interpretation of tawakkul. Right? So we want to clarify that. We do use the means, tawakkal ala Allah, i'qalha, do tie your camel, then tawakkal ala Allah, rely on Allah. And know that that's the test. That's the absolute test. Because if you get your needs fulfilled without using the means, because you rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you will see the result right away. It'll become clear that Allah ta'ala is providing me directly without the means. The test is when you use the means, and the disbeliever, he trusts in the means and his needs are being fulfilled. You are using the means, but you don't trust in the means. You believe it is musabbib al-asbab, Allah behind the scenes fulfilling your needs. So that is the test. There's one hadith about this that's misinterpreted, and then there's the correct interpretation. You know, لو أنكم توكلتم على الله حق توكله, if you trust in Allah the way you're supposed to trust, لرزقكم كما يرزق الطير, He will provide you the risk and provision like He does to the birds. تغدو خماصا وتروح بطانا, they leave their nest hungry and they return home full stomachs, full bellies. So I have myself heard as a student, or some, here and there, some other places, that this was quoted and said, look, if you have tawakkul, Allah will provide for you. Does the bird have a job? Does the bird have a degree? Does the bird have a master's and PhD? So, if you have tawakkul, you don't need any of the above. But what does the hadith say? He says, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying that if you have tawakkul like the birds, Allah will provide you. What do the birds do? They don't sit at home and ma'idatan min as-sama', that the table spread comes from the sky. عِيدًا لِأَوَّلِنَا وَآخِرِنَا وَآيَةً مِّنْكَ. As the disciples of Isa alayhi salam, they asked for a table spread from the sky in Surah Al-Ma'idah. That's not what the bird does. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam went out of his way to explain that taghdu, it leaves its nest. For what? Touring, vacation. It goes out to seek its risk. And then, taruha bitana, when he makes the effort, Allah Ta'ala provides the risk to the bird. So risk, effort along with tawakkul on Allah. So we say, Bismillah, I trust in, I begin in the name of Allah and I rely upon Allah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. There is no might, no power except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. La hawla anil ma'asiyah la quwwa illa ta'ah. No might to prevent me from wrong, and no power to bring me towards righteousness, except from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So whoever says this dua when he leaves his house, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that he will be guided. Hudita, you will be guided, and kufita, your needs will be fulfilled, it will be sufficient for you, and you will be protected. Three, subhanallah, beautiful rewards, beautiful benefits. And the shayateen will distance themselves from him. Who wants shayateen around? Shayateen are always bad to have around. They're inciting us towards wrong and evil. Subhanallah. So hidayah, guidance, sufficient for our needs and protected. It's amazing dua. It's a no-brainer. This is given to us as a gift, but we are not taking it. Who can we blame but ourselves? Then before sleeping, Allahumma aslamtu nafsi ilayk, wa fawwadtu amri ilayk, wa wajjahtu wajhi ilayk, wa alja'tu dhahri ilayk, raghbatan wa rahbatan ilayk, la malja wa la manja minka illa ilayk, amantu bi kitabika alladhi anzalta, وَبِنِبِيِّكَ الَّذِي أَرْسَلْتَ. Such a beautiful dua for us to be able to appreciate the rhythm. That's why I read the whole thing. Allahumma aslamtu nafsi ilayk. Oh Allah, I have submitted my soul to you. وَفَوَّضْتُ أَمْرِي إِلَيْكَ. I have entrusted all my affairs to you. وَوَجَّهْتُ وَجْهِي إِلَيْكَ. I have turned my face towards you. وَالْجَأْتُ ظَهْرِي إِلَيْكَ. I only totally rely on you. رَغْبَةً وَرَهْبَةً إِلَيْكَ. This is the targheeb and the tarheeb we spoke about. In hope and in fear of you. La malja'a wa la manja. There is no refuge, no place to take a safe haven. Minka, from your anger, illa ilayk, but to return to your mercy. Allahumma a'udhu bika minka. Oh Allah, I seek protection in your anger by invoking and seeking your mercy. So if you want to protect yourself from the anger of Allah, you have to go back to the mercy of Allah, no other place. Amantu bi kitabika alladhi anzalta. I believe in your book which you have revealed, wa bi nabiyyika alladhi arsalta, and I believe in your prophet whom you have sent. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever says this and dies in his sleep has died in a state of fitrah. There you go. 100% confirmed that you will die with Iman. So when we recite this dua before we sleep, and there's another type of deeper sleep than a normal sleep. It's when we are going under general anesthesia, for example, for operation. If you recite this dua before you go, and an anesthesiologist, makes a mistake, you end up never waking up. That lawsuit, malpractice, whatever, that'll keep on happening afterwards. But we will end up going straight to Jannah. This is a beautiful dua to recite before we sleep every night. But in particular, if somebody's going into surgery, it's a beautiful dua. Then we have Sayyidul Istighfar, the best istighfar. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said it's the best. This is not like some random survey, users, they prefer this one product or something. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam gave it this title, Sayyidul Istighfar. And taqula, you say, Allahumma anta rabbi, oh Allah, you're my Lord. La ilaha illa ant, no one besides you is worthy of worship. This is in our morning du'as at Darus Salam. Khalaqtani, you created me. Wa ana abduka, and I am your slave. Wa ana ala ahdika wa wa'dika mastata'at. I'm trying my best to fulfill my pledge that I made to you. A'udhu bika min sharri ma sana'tu. I seek your protection from all the evil that I'm doing. Abu laka bi ni'matika aliyya. I do testify that, subhanallah, you have given me so many blessings. I acknowledge those. Wa abu bi dhanbi, and I acknowledge my sins. I acknowledge all the blessings from you, and I acknowledge all the sins from me. What's happening? You are sending blessings upon blessings, and I'm committing sins upon sins. A'udhu billahi min dhalik. That's who? That's all of us. Faghfir li, so forgive me. فَإِنَّهُ لَا يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبَ إِلَّا أَنْتَ. No one can forgive the sins besides you. We hear this and move on. No one can forgive the sins besides you. But what does that mean? Because when Allah forgives a sin, a lot of things are happening. A lot of things are happening that no one else can do. كِرَامٌ كَاتِبِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ مَا تَفْعَلُونَ. They are writing down the deeds. So no one has access, can break through the firewall and alter what's written there besides Allah. And He removes it from the memory of the angels too. And we heard today and recited in Surah Hamim Sajda towards the end, يَوْمَ نَخْتِمُ عَلَىٰ أَفْوَاهِهِمْ. We will seal their mouths with وَتَكَلِّمُونَ أَيْدِيهِمْ. Their hands will speak forth. وَتَشْهَدُ أَرْجُلُهُمْ بِمَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. And their body parts will speak. وَقَالُوا لِجُلُودِهِمْ لِمَا شَهِدتُمْ عَلَيْنَا. They will say to the body parts, why are you testifying against us? قَالُوا أَنْتَقَنَ اللَّهُ الَّذِي أَنْتَقَ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ. Allah has given us the ability to speak. We had given you the ability to speak in the dunya. So the memory of the body parts, who can remove the memory of that sin? لَا يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبَ إِلَّا أَنْتَ, only you. And even the earth where we're committing the sin, يَوْمَئِذٍ إِذَا زُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ زِلْزَالَهَا. When there will be a great earthquake beyond the Richter scale, cannot be measured. What happens? أَخْرَجَتِ الْأَرْضُ أَثْقَالَهَا. All the bodies will be coming sent forth from the earth. It will expel it. Expel all the bodies, the human bodies. وَقَالِ الْإِنسَانُ مَا لَهَا يَوْمَئِذٍ تُحَدِّثُ أَخْبَارَهَا. The earth itself will give the khabar of what happened, report. So who can go into the memory of the earth and remove that? Delete it, shift, delete it, empty the recycle bin. Right? That is only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت. قال ومن قالها من النهار موقنا بها. Whoever recites this dua with yaqeen in the day, فمات من يوم, he dies that day. قبل أن يمسي, before the evening. فهو من أهل الجنة, he's among the residents of Jannah. What a beautiful guarantee. ومن قالها من الليل, whoever recites this dua at night, وهو موقن بها, and he has yaqeen in it, فمات قبل أن يصبح, he dies before the morning. فهو من أهل الجنة, he's among the residents of Jannah. What about debts and worries in this dunya? Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal-hazan. Oh Allah, I seek protection from all grief and worries. Wa a'udhu bika min al-ajzi wal-kasal, from being weak and powerless. And kasal is what? Laziness. Wa a'udhu bika min al-jubni wal-bukhul. I seek your protection from jubn is cowardice. Bukhul is stinginess. Wa a'udhu bika, I seek your protection min ghalabat ad-dain, from overpowering of debts. And qahr al-rijal, and the anger and overpowering of my enemies upon me. Beautiful du'as of protection. Safety of house, wealth and family. This is a beautiful dua. There's a person will be protected from any calamity that potentially may happen. Lam tusibhu musibatun, no calamity will affect him that whole day or whole night that he recites it. The famous story of Abu Darda or Abu Umama radiallahu anhu, where someone came and told him that there is a fire, the whole neighborhood is destroyed, go save your family. He said, no, it's okay. Then another person came and said, your whole street is burning, go and save your family and your life savings and your honor, no, your possessions. He said, everything's fine. Third person came and said, the fire came, destroyed the whole block, it came into your house and stopped. He said, yes, I had conviction. I had recited this dua. Allahumma anta rabbi la ilaha illa anta alayka tawakkaltu. I will have to, should I skip the tarjuma or I'll do it very fast? Allahumma anta rabbi, oh Allah, you're my Lord, la ilaha illa anta, there is no one worthy of worship besides you. Alayka tawakkaltu. Only upon you I rely. Tawakkaltu alayk means I rely upon you. Alayka tawakkaltu means only upon you I rely. Taqdeema haqqu ta'khir fi dhul hasr. This gives the sense of exclusivity. Only upon you I rely. Wa anta rabbul arshil azim, and you are the Lord of the great throne. Ma sha Allahu kan, whatever Allah decrees is going to happen. Wa ma lam yasha lam yakun, whatever He does not decree can never happen. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-aliyyil azim. We covered this translation. A'lamu anna Allah ala kulli shay'in qadir. I know that Allah has the ability to do whatever He wants. Wa anna Allah qad ahata bi kulli shay'in ilma. And Allah's knowledge encompasses everything. Allahumma, O Allah, inni a'udhu bika min shari nafsi. I seek your protection from the evil of my own nafs. وَمِن شَرِّ كُلِّ دَابَّةٍ, in the evil of every animal, أَنْتَ آخِذٌ بِنَاصِيَتِهَا, that you are controlling. آخِذٌ بِنَاصِيَتِهَا means that literally that you are holding and grabbing their forelock, the hair on their forehead. Meaning you control. إِنَّ رَبِّي عَلَى صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ. Verily my Lord is on the straight path. Then we have other du'as for protection. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika, O Allah, I seek your protection. مِنْ عِلْمٍ لَا يَنْفَعُ, from such knowledge that does not benefit. وَمِنْ دُعَاءٍ لَا يُسْمَعُ, from such a dua that is not accepted. Min qalbin la yakhsha, from such a heart that does not fear you. Min nafsin la tashba, from such a soul that is nafs that is never satiated. Right? So, min aynin la tadma, such an eye that does never shed tears. So, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min ha'ula'il arba'. Allah, I seek a protection from all of these four. To keep the rhyme going, the qafiyah. Anyway, so we see here beautiful du'as. We don't even have to come up with it. We don't have to be so creative. Rasulullah ﷺ has taught us all these du'as. And then we say, how are we supposed to make half an hour dua? They said in tahajjud, you're in itikaf, you should make half an hour, 1 hour dua. How in the world do you do that? I run out of gas after 2 minutes. No, because there's so many masnoon du'as. Let us benefit from them. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min zawali ni'matik. O Allah, I seek a protection from your blessings to decline. And tahawwuli afiyatik, your well-being afiyah that you have granted me, that is changed. And fuja'ati niqmatik, and sudden anger comes from you. And jami'i sakhatik, in all forms of your displeasure. Protection. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika, I seek your protection min jahadil bala, from severe calamities, daraki shaqa, misery to fall upon me, su'il qada, bad taqdeer and fate, shamatatil a'da, from the gloating of my enemies. Meaning my enemies are happy to see me in trouble. That's called shamata. Okay, so these are some masnoon du'as. Then we have individual du'a. Individual du'a guidelines. Now we're coming to the etiquettes of making du'a, right, for acceptance. First, we start off by praising Allah. Never forget this. We always start off by praising Allah. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, praise Allah. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, praise Allah. Malik Yawmiddin, declare your servitude, Iyaka na'budu. Then you present your need, Iyaka nasta'in. What is the need? Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim. Right. That's the way. Praise Allah Ta'ala, humble yourself, and then you ask your need. Okay, so humbling yourself before Allah is a central component, necessary component in each dua. Then the ask. Look at this. Some case studies from the duas of the Anbiya, revealed by Allah Ta'ala in the Quran. Why? لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي قَصَصِهِمْ عِبَرَةٌ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ, a lesson for those people who have intelligence. Allah Ta'ala says here, Zakaria alayhi salam, what does he say? See, he says, رَبِّي إِنِّي وَهَنَ الْعَظْمُ مِنِّي وَاشْتَعَلَ الرَّأْسُ شَيْبًا. Right? He humbles himself in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, oh my Lord, my bones have become weak, my hair has become white. Now the tafsir of how he expresses this in a very eloquent manner is for another occasion. وَلَمْ أَكُمْ بِدُعَائِكَ رَبِّي شَقِيًّا. And oh Allah, you are so great. He praises Allah. That whenever I call unto you, you always responded. You never abandoned me. You never left me alone. You never forsake me. So I know you are going to respond to my dua. وَإِنِّي خِفْتُ الْمَوَالِيَ مِنْ وَرَائِي. And I'm afraid about my progeny who's going to take care of them, my people after me, because he has no children. That's what he's making dua for. وَكَانَتْ إِمْرَأَتِي عَاقِرًا. But my wife is barren. So you present your specific needs. Some shaitanic objection is that, hey, Allah already knows everything, so why are you saying? Yeah, but He wants to see you present your needs. Right? He wants to see you present your needs. So don't you think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that His wife is barren? He's the one who made her barren. But He wants you to present your need. Right? وَكَانَتْ إِمْرَأَتِي عَاقِرًا فَهَبْ لِي مِن لَدُنْكَ وَلِيًّا. Oh Allah, I ask from you that you grant me a successor, a child. Allah Ta'ala responded to him and gave him Yahya alayhi salam. You see the dua of Yunus alayhi salam. Yunus alayhi salam he made a error in judgment by leaving before the command to leave was, and then he went into the boat, and then his name was drawn out in the lots. We know the story of Yunus alayhi salam, and then he eventually he had to go and dive into the water, and then he was swallowed by the fish, and he was very, 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 very despondent and sad, and he was saying that Allah is upset with me. Then the fish went down into the bottom of the water, and now he was completely losing hope. And then he heard some sound, and then he started listening more closely. And what was that sound? And then he heard that the stones on the bottom of the ocean, they were making tasbih of Allah. So that inspired him. Just like when Zakaria alayhi salam saw the fruits by Maryam alayhi salam, who were in a secluded place with no access to anyone. Kafala Zakaria, he was taking care of her because her father had passed away. He was the uncle, the khalu, his wife was the khala, maternal aunt of Maryam alayhi salam. So he saw the food there. Where did you get these fruits from? Off-season fruits. It's not from the southern hemisphere. The fruits come in the northern hemisphere, goes in the southern, as you have different seasons. It's not like that. Where did you get these fruits from? So what did she say? Allah provided the fruits directly to me. So he said, SubhanAllah, Allah can provide off-season fruits. He can give me an off-season child, even though I've passed the phase of that. So he saw that scene, he made this dua. Yunus alayhi salam got inspired by the stones at the bottom of the ocean. Fanada fi dhulumat, he called out to me in the multiple darknesses. Dark night, dark ocean, dark inside the belly of the fish. So there are multiple levels of darkness. He called out, he said, La ilaha illa ant, there is no one worthy of worship besides you. Subhanak, you are so pure, O Allah. Inni kuntu min al-zalimeen, verily I am one of the zalimeen. Where's the ask? Ask is not sarih, is not explicitly mentioned, implicitly implied. Meaning, he feels so humble that I'm not even in a position to ask, so take me out of the belly of the fish. It's not there. Bring me back to dry land. It's not there. It's ardul hal, presenting one's condition and saying, look, oh Allah, inni kuntu min al-zalimeen. I'll stop right there. I mean, I'm not in a position to even ask beyond that. This is just like when Adam and Hawa alayhi salam made the mistake. They came down to the world and they were crying for 40 years. فَتَلَقَّى آدَمُ مِنْ رَبِّهِ كَلِمَاتٍ. And finally Allah Ta'ala taught Adam alayhi salam kalimat, which words to make dua. Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah Al-Araf tells us which those words were. What are those words? رَبَّنَا ظَلَمْنَا أَنفُسَنَا. O our Lord, we have made dhulm upon ourselves. وَإِن لَمْ تَغْفِرْ لَنَا وَتَرْحَمْنَا. If you do not forgive us and shower mercy upon us, لَنَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. We will be amongst the losers. Did he say, فَغْفِرْ لِي, forgive me? No. Did he say, فَارْحَمْنِي, shower mercy upon me? No. He said, لَمْ تَغْفِرْ لَنَا وَتَرْحَمْنَا. If you do not forgive me, I'll be a loser. I'll just leave it at that. So please make sure I'm not a loser. He didn't even say that. This is extreme level of humbleness. This is what we see in dua of Yunus, dua of Adam and Hawa, our father and mother. Dua of Ayub. وَأَيُّوبَ إِذْ نَادَى رَبَّهُ. And remember Ayub. This is a very beautiful series. These duas are taken from where? Surah Al-Anbiya. Surah Al-Anbiya is not Surah Yusuf and Surah Yunus, right? Surah Al-Anbiya, all the prophets, 17 juz. So what happens there is that there's a beautiful series where Allah Ta'ala says, all the different Anbiya, they called me out. They called out to me and they made dua to me and how I responded. فَاسْتَجَبْنَا لَهُ فَاسْتَجَبْنَا لَهُ فَاسْتَجَبْنَا لَهُ. It's a beautiful series. I responded to that Nabi's dua, I responded to that Nabi's dua, I responded to that Nabi's dua. When I respond to you, that's the message. Over there Allah Ta'ala says, وَأَيُّوبَ إِذْ نَادَى رَبَّهُ. Remember Ayub. Ayyuba Mansub, Wadhkur Ayyub. Remember Ayyub, إِذْ نَادَى رَبَّهُ, when he called out to his Lord. What did he say? أَنِّي مَسَّنِيَ الضُّرُّ. I have been afflicted. Beautiful children, they were sleeping together. The whole roof fell down. All the kids died. All the sheep that he had, disease spread, all died. All the goats died. All the camels died. All the crops were drought. Everything he lost. He's sick, physically thrown out from his town. He's in the outskirts. Only thing that he had was, only person who was with him was his wife, serving him. And then finally, years and years of suffering, then he calls out, أَنِّي مَسَّنِيَ الضُّرُّ وَأَنْتَ أَرْحَمُ الرَّاحِمِينَ. I've been afflicted by so many afflictions. Lost my children, lost my wealth, lost my health. And you are the most merciful of those who show mercy. Subhanallah. Allah Ta'ala granted him. Urkuz bi rijlik, hit your feet, your ankle on this piece of earth. هَذَا مُغْتَسَلٌ. There will be a water springs forth, just like Zamzam for Ismail alayhi salam. Baridun wa sharab, cool, drink it, take a ghusl. When his wife came back, she saw a handsome man. She said, please, my husband was here. perhaps the wolves have taken his dead body and dragged him. Or somebody's eating, animals may be eating his corpse. Can you help me find him? He said, I'm your husband. She said, do not, please do not joke with me. Do not mock me. Do not hurt my feelings more. I am a very troubled woman. I have a difficult life. He said, I am Ayub. Look at me. She could not recognize him. Subhanallah. We gave him more kids than before, and we gave him all the wealth that he lost. So that's beautiful. There is light at the end of the tunnel. So 2 parts of dua. First, you humble yourself before Allah, then you ask. We saw that, right? We saw in all of those du'as how they humble themselves. What are some etiquettes for individual dua? Make sure it's meaningful and passionate. Passionate. Not qalbun lahin, a heart that is ghafil. Look, ud'u Allah, make dua to Allah, wa antum muqinuna bil ijaba, having complete conviction, Allah will respond. And know that Allah will not, la yastajibu, He does not respond to the dua, min qalbin ghafilin lahin, from a heart that is heedless. Right? So make sure that we are making dua from our heart. Dua is not something that is recited, dua is something that comes from the heart. You're not reciting it. It's not some recitation. It is actually a prayer from the heart. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, Allah Ta'ala will continue to respond to the dua of His worshipper as long as he does not ask for a sin, as long as he does not break ties, as long as he is not hasty. Ma'lam yasta'jil. He's hasty. I want it right now, I want it right now. Fast and furious. Right? So this will not work. It was asked, O Messenger of Allah, what does it mean to be hasty? He said, I prayed, I don't see it's accepted. So he gives up hope. Yes, وَيَتْرَكُ الدُّعَاء, and leaves dua. Purity of sustenance is important, very important, to have halal rizq. This is a famous hadith that we talk about when we talk about zabiyah and halal and all that. A person makes dua, Ya Rab, oh my Rab. His dua is not accepted. Why not? مَطْعَمُهُ haram, مَشْرَبُهُ haram, food is haram, drink is haram, malbasu haram, clothing he's wearing is from haram income. And so therefore, أَنَّا يُسْتَجَابُ لَهُ, why would his dua be accepted? Right? So a person has to ensure he has halal. Sometimes, some people are focused on buying 100% zabiyah halal, but the income is haram. That's haram too. Some people have absolutely halal income, but they're eating non-zabiyah food. That's also haram. It has to be halal income and halal food, both. Then we have to have humility and cry. Ud'u rabbakum, invoke your Lord, tadarru'an wa khufya, in humility and in secret, not to show off to others. Allah Ta'ala says, وَاذْكُرْ رَبَّكَ فِي نَفْسِكَ تَضَرُّعًا وَخِيفَةً وَخُفْيَةً دون الجهر من القول بالغدو والآصال ولا تكن من الغافلين. Right? Humbly invoke your Lord in the morning and afternoon. Do not be among the neglectful. Then we always have to remember to praise Allah and send salawat on Rasulullah. Salawat on Rasulullah is a 100% guaranteed dua. You're asking Allah that the one you love, your Habib, further elevate his status. He will accept that dua. So make that in the beginning. Make it at the end, salawat as well. He will accept it. Now when the first dua is guaranteed acceptance, the last dua is guaranteed acceptance, then we have sealed our dua with acceptance. Allah will not accept the first and last one and reject that which is in between. He will accept all. So that is why salawat in the beginning, salawat at the end. Right? Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned, he showed, you have been hasty? When you finish your dua, praise Allah and send salawat upon me. Okay. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ تَعَالَى كَرِيمٌ يَسْتَحِي إِذَا رَفَعَ إِلَيْهِ الْعَبْدُ يَدَيْهِ أَن يَرُدَّهُمَا صِفْرًا حَتَّى يَضَعَ فِيهِمَا خَيْرًا. Subhanallah. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that Allah is shy and beneficent. Shy that when a servant raises his hands to him in dua, to return them empty. Shy, كَمَا يَلِيقُ بِجَلَالِهِ, as befits His majesty. It can be interpreted. Raising one's hands is an etiquette here. Right? Because the hadith says, رَفَعَ إِلَيْهِ الْعَبْدُ يَدَيْهِ, when the slave raises his hands. That's the point of this hadith. That's the mustashad. That's what the point of this hadith is. Then miscellaneous etiquettes, face the qibla. Right? Be in a state of wudu, cry in front of Allah, acknowledge one's sins, repeating it multiple times, benefiting from the du'as mentioned in Quran and Sunnah, to pray for others too. رَبِّ اغْفِرْ لِي وَلِأَخِي. Musa alayhi salam said, forgive me and my brothers. Allahumma اغْفِرْ لَنَا وَلِإِخْوَانِنَا الَّذِينَ سَبَقُونَا الْإِيمَانِ. Oh Allah, forgive us and those who passed before us. Allahumma اغْفِرْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ. Forgive the believing men and women. Right? رَبِّ اغْفِرْ لِي وَلِوَالِدَيَّ. Forgive me and my parents. You know how they say in the airlines, if there's a decrease in the cabin pressure, then the mask will descend. First put it on yourself, then help your loved one. Rabbi Ighfirli, forgive me, wali walidayya, and my parents. Rabbi Ighfirli, forgive me, and wali akhi, my brother. Allahumma ighfir lana, forgive us, wali ikhwanina, and our brothers. So make dua for yourself first, then for your loved ones. That's the order. Pray for others and be persistent. Continue, do not give up. Seeking out special times and places. So there are khas zaman, khas makan, times and places. Last third of the night. Which night? Laylatul Qadr, Laylatul Bara'ah. Which night? Every night. There's an offer every night. There's a beautiful long hadith for that one. Where Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kama yaliqu bi jalalihi, as befits him, he descends and he says, Man yanstansurni fansuruhu. Who's there to seek help so I can help him? Man yahdini. Who's there to seek, man yastahdini. Who's there to seek guidance that I can guide him? So, man yastaghfiruni. Who's there to seek forgiveness? Faghfir lahu, so I can forgive him. Allah is asking and we are sleeping. Last third of the night. During adhan, in between adhan and iqamah, bain al-adhan wal iqamah, time to make dua. During salah and during sajda and after salah in our nawafil, we can make dua in the salah. Day of Jum'ah, there's a moment where the duas are accepted. Some of the scholars believe it is between the two khutbahs, and others say it is right before Maghrib. Before drinking Zamzam, Ramadan, Laylatul Qadr, right now, it could be right now, any of these nights coming up, during the Hajj, and while visiting sick, iyad of marid, during rainfall, subhanAllah, these are different times of acceptance. At the time of iftar, time of suhoor. Places are inside the Kaaba, if Allah allows you. Multazam is a place, is the most prized real estate on the Kaaba is which one? Between Hadr al-Aswad and the door. The small area is multazam, that which Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam stuck himself onto and placed his chest there and his cheeks there and his forehead there. Iltazama means to, one of the meanings of iltizam is to stick yourself to. And multazim is the one who is sticking himself, and multazam is the place that he got stuck onto. So multazam is that place where Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam touched and stood for a long time to make dua. Safa Marwa after Jamarat, when we are in sajda, and when we are in sajda, in our nawafil prayers. Masjid al-Fath after Dhuhr on Wednesdays. What happened here? There are 7 masajid by the Khandaq, by the ditch in Medina. When you went on the tour, you may have seen it, you may recall. There's one really small one, really small one, it has a couple of safs. It's on a little hillock. It's called Masjid al-Fath, the Masjid of Victory. So the battle of Khandaq was not a 1 or 2 day affair. It was a long siege. And it was freezing, and it was cold, and there was hunger and starvation, and there were enemies from outside, enemies from inside. It was a very, very difficult campaign. And بَلَغَتِ الْقُلُوبُ الْحَنَاجِرِ, the hearts were coming out of fear and hunger. وَتَظُنُّونَ بِاللَّهِ الظُّنُونَ, you were beginning to lose hope. هُنَالِكَ ابْتُلِيَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ, the believers were tested. وَزُلْزِلُوا زِلْزَالًا شَدِيدًا, were shaken to their core. Allah Ta'ala describes in Surah Al-Ahzab. Ahzab is also the name of Khandaq. It wasn't just the Quraysh, it was all the confederate tribes who would come. So when this got to its peak and the Sahaba were breaking at that time, it was a Wednesday, it was after Dhuhr, when Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam went to Masjid al-Fath and he made a dua. When he made the dua, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِذْ جَاءَتْكُمْ جُنُودٌ فَأَرْسَلْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ رِيحًا وَجُنُودًا لَمْ تَرَوْهَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent an army that you cannot see, and he sent the winds that blowed the tents of the mushrikun, and they finally dispersed. So Allah ta'ala granted victory to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba when he made dua on a Wednesday after Dhuhr at the location of Masjid al-Fath. So therefore, we should go there when we are there in Medina on a Wednesday after Dhuhr and make dua. There's so many stories till today of individuals who made dua after Dhuhr on Wednesdays, and Allah accepted the dua. One dear friend of ours, Mufti Shakir, a very close friend from years, in the time of Corona, they had closed Masjid Nabawi, initial lockdown. And janazah was being performed in Masjid Nabawi, and nobody was being buried in Jannatul Baqiyah. And his whole family for like 40 years had migrated to Medina. He was born in Medina, waiting for the day to die in Baqiyah. And when his mother died, they said that nobody is getting buried in Baqiyah. So he went to all the different agencies, he went to the government and this and that, and getting intercession, please, from the hospital to the morgue to the... Can I get a permission from my mother to be buried in Jannatul Baqiyah with 10,000 Sahaba? They said, no way. It's blocked. Why? Right when it was at the peak of the lockdown. So then he said on Wednesday after Dhuhr to Masjid al-Fath and he made dua. Oh Allah, allow my mother to be buried in Jannatul Baqir. And the first person who was buried in Jannatul Baqir was his mother. Right? So, subhanAllah, after the corona, that is. Allahu Akbar. So they have accepted du'as. Mazloom, his dua is accepted. That's why they say, be aware of the dua of the mazloom. The zalim, if he makes dua against the oppressed person's dua, Allah will accept. The musafir, the traveler, the one who's fasting, the dua of parents for their children is accepted. And the curse also may be accepted. So that's why we should never curse our children. The one who's reciting the Quran, the one who's returning from Hajj and Umrah. Someone returns from Hajj and Umrah, we should ask them, please make dua for us. If you make dua, bi dhahr al-ghayb, on behalf of an absent person who is not there. The just ruler, his dua is accepted, and one who constantly remembers Allah. Right. So this was something I wanted to get quickly through it, so that alhamdulillah we have gotten to the end of this presentation. Of course, there's way more things we can learn about dua, but let us not just sit back and relax and say, oh, we learned everything about it. We have still not done it. Now is the time to act. Now is the time to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now is the time to remember these things in the 23rd night in particular, 25th, 27th, 29th that are coming up. That is why this was a quick refresher for us to ensure we practice upon it. And, do not allow these blessed moments to pass by without making dua in the manner that we learned. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give me and you and all of us tawfiq to make dua to Allah ta'ala and to be able to, subhanallah, draw from His infinite treasures. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. The rest of the programs will continue with, inshallah, with Mufti Azimuddin. Will be coming at 1 o'clock, inshallah, with the youth program. And inshallah, I will be back after Fajr Salah. Jazakumullahu Khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.